Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we will be looking at one of the most famous chess games of all time, known as the Opera game, and was played informally at the Paris Opera in 1858 between Paul Morphy, who was widely acknowledged to be the greatest chess master of his era, and two strong amateurs, the Duke of Brunswick and Count Isouard, who played in consultation. Morphy played by White's side in this game, and opened with a pawn to e4. Black replied with a pawn to e5. Knight to f3. Pawn to d6, which marks the Philidor defense. Black defends e5, but this move blocks the bishop on f8. Morphy played pawn to d4, the most active move, which frees the bishop on c1 and attacks the pawn on e5. Bishop to g4. Black tries to create a pin on the knight, but the tactic is flawed. In this position it was better to play pawn captures d4, but after queen recaptures the pawn, the white's position is much better here too. Pawn captures on d5, bishop captures f3. This is black's only way to prevent the loss of the pawn on e5. Queen takes the bishop, pawn recaptures on e5, bishop to c4. Morphy develops the bishop and threatens black with a checkmate on f7. Knight to f6, queen to b3. Morphy puts pressure on both the f7 and b7 squares. Queen to e7. Black can't defend both weaknesses, so they choose to defend the more dangerous threat. Here, if white had captured on b7, black simply would have played queen to b4 check, and after trading the queen, the game would have been equalized a bit. Therefore, in this position Morphy developed his knight to c3 in order to prevent the queen's trade on b4. Black replied with pawn to c6, which is probably the best move in this position, because this move allows the queen to defend the pawn on b7, and the c6 pawn defends the squares b5 and d5 so that white's knight can't advance to these squares. Morphy developed his bishop to g5, creating a pin. Pawn to b5, which proves to be a serious mistake. Morphy immediately replied with knight to b5, sacrificing the knight, but opening the black king's position. Pawn takes on b5, bishop recaptures on b5, knight to d7. In this position, Morphy castled, gaining control of the d-file and putting pressure on d7 square. Black played rook to d8, defending the knight. Morphy played rook captures d7. Morphy wants to include his last piece, the rook on h1, as fast as possible, so he sacrifices his rook on d7. Rook recaptures on d7, rook to d1, queen to e6. Black unpins the knight on f6 so that it can finally defend d7. But in this position Morphy had already sniffed out a checkmating idea and played bishop takes the rook. Knight recaptures on d7, queen to b8 check. Here ensuing knight captures the queen, the only possible move, and rook to d8, finishing the game with a brilliant checkmate. After this tremendous game, the checkmate in which the bishop defends the rook like this became known as Morphy's mate in memory of this brilliant opera game. Feel free to leave comments about your thoughts on this game and let me know if you have ever achieved a checkmate with Morphy's mate. That's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more chess-related content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next videos.